Hello again, faithful viewers. My name is Matthew,
And I'm Kenneth.
and we're the Movie Meisters. And Kenneth, we have seen Spectre.
Yes.
Kenneth, what's the plot of Spectre?
The plot of Spectre is that this ex-Nazi from Inglourious Bastards teams up with Professor Moriarty to take over all of the Secret Service agencies of the world. And Bond has to stop him. But in doing so, he finds out this ex-Nazi is, in fact, his brother. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, so this movie is very similar to Skyfall. Did you get that feeling?
Yes, I did, yeah. One of the first things I noticed, so Matt, as I said at the end of our Skyfall review, that film felt like a satisfying conclusion to the Bond series. It was a nice 50th anniversary, this is the Bond series, we're bringing it full circle. We're bringing it back right to the beginning of the series, that same feel. Well, Matt, that opinion has not changed after seeing this movie. While having 2 or 3, I would say even great scenes, I want to say that the overall experience of watching the film, it just fell flat for me. There was clearly a lot of effort put into this movie. The actors are all doing a very good job. The action scenes, there's a lot going on in them. There's clearly a lot of money put into them. But for some reason, they all seem to fall flat. And I think it's because every time there's the potential of something interesting happening, it's constantly distracted by what's ironically the main plot. Spectre taking over all of the secret services of the world and also shutting down MI6. We saw this plot in Skyfall. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, so we're retreading old ground, right? And it's kind of pays a disservice to how good Skyfall was and the character arcs and plot lines in Skyfall. So not only is MI6 in trouble again, but the MI6 building is also in trouble again and also explodes again.
Right.
We're kind of back to bringing back Judi Dench M, who we suddenly trust, and don't really trust Mallory M anymore, even though those plot lines kind of ended in a satisfying way.
Yes.
And you look back at the sequence where he walks into the old office, and there's Moneypenny, there's M, there's everything. All is right with the world, but no, I guess it's not right with the world, and you just got to keep more secrets.
That's the thing about the movie. It can't handle its own main plot. The initial plot is Bond needs to go after this guy because former M tells him you need to go after this guy, even though she's dead already. She left a message for him. He does so by going rogue. At the same time, this guy called C, played by Moriarty, is trying to end MI6 and just take over all the security organizations of the world. Every time this movie is building to something interesting, it constantly cuts back to that plot. I don't think it needed it. It had some good momentum coming from Bond's side. There was a great setup. We have this great meeting scene. We have Blofeld walking in, and it's all very dark and mysterious, and it seems like all of his members are afraid of him. And I think that's a great scene. It's a great way to build up the villain. But then we have a reveal for him, which takes away from his villainy. And we're constantly cutting back to these other scenes that are distracting us from the interesting part. Let's move on to Blofeld, because that's a big sticking point for both of us, I think.
Yeah, so on the good side, in this introductory scene, they kind of pay homage to the faceless Blofelds, which is more common in the movie version. But they go with the Blofeld who stares you directly in the face, which is much more like the books and kind of, I think, more interesting. But then all this sort of antics that he gets up to, all these kind of unsettling speech patterns that Christoph Waltz invests him with, it just ends up seeming petty because they're brothers, and is he just taunting them because they're brothers? Is he this continent-spanning octopus of villainous machinations, or is he just an asshole?
Well, clearly the movie shows us, Matt, that he's just an asshole. He says, oh, well, my adopted brother, James Bond, came into the picture, and all of a sudden my father only paid attention to him, so I killed my father, and now I'm going to torture you for the rest of the life. One of the things that really doesn't work for this movie is that it's trying to tie together all of Daniel Craig's Bond films. It sort of makes sense for Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, because those were about a mysterious organization working behind the scenes. This could just be the reveal of their leader and so on. But it makes absolutely no sense for Skyfall. Silva was his own character, and he had his own motivations. And to reveal that he was in fact working for this mysterious leader cheapens his motivations and it makes him seem less like an interesting character. Oh, doesn't Bond seem very reckless in his action scenes in this movie?
You open up, I think it starts off really well. You get this long shot staying on Bond, being just extremely suave and competent, deadly, casually strolling across rooftops, assembling a sniper rifle to shoot somebody. Very good. But then he goes into this long, explosion-filled helicopter, civilian-threatening action sequence to chase after some guy, and we really don't understand why he's doing any of that.
Right.
I guess it's supposed to show us that's how desperate he is to figure out this organization, but it's odd.
Yeah, and see, that's not the only action scene either where we have that sort of thing. There's a chase scene where he's saving the daughter of Mr. White, and because she gets kidnapped by the evil organization. They're in cars, he's in an airplane, and in order to save her, he starts shooting at the car that has her in it. He starts crashing the plane and into all the various cars, and if he miscalculates, he could very easily hit the car that she's in. It doesn't make sense what he's trying to do with these action scenes, and that's part of the problem. And that's what Skyfall did really well. They establish in the opening scene of Skyfall, this guy killed one of your friends, and he's running away with something very, very important. That's all we need, and then it becomes very close up and personal. It becomes very intense. Whereas the action scenes in this, for one, we don't fully understand the purpose of many of the action scenes, or we do, and Bond is not doing actions to fulfill that purpose, or they're tonally inconsistent. There are moments of humor. They don't mesh well with the intensity that they're trying to set up with the action scenes.
With that chase sequence you were mentioning, if you're behaving in that way, you're either it's dangerous and intense, and you're behaving recklessly, or it's not dangerous at all, and you're behaving that way just because you're so good that flying around, crashing into things, shooting at the people you're trying to say, you're too good, you're not going to mess up. And I think it kind of falls under the second category, because at the end of the chase sequence, he steps out of a burning crashed plane and immediately shoots a guy in the head, and it's very quiet, and the sound effect of the gun is very short and snappy, and it's just like, boop, you're dead. It's like he's putting a little cap on it, like, and I'm just going to step out of this plane and shoot you in the face. Okay. James Bond, professional killing automaton, as portrayed by Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
James Bond can be campy and funny, can be someone you really sympathize with, this suspense type of deal going on. But it needs to be something.
Right.
It feels very Jason Bourne-ish, kind of getting into the bad old days of Daniel Craig that I did not like.
Yeah, this is bringing back some flashbacks of Quantum of Solace, definitely. Once again, it's very easy to just compare this film to Skyfall because it's the same director, same writers, same everything. It falls flat next to that movie because the action scenes in that movie are intense. We know the stakes of everything that's going to happen, and Bond is doing things to try to stop the bad thing from happening. And there are some lighthearted moments sprinkled in, but they're there also to kind of supplement the action scene. For example, he jumps on the train and he says, "Open the door," because the lady won't let him in. She lets him in, and then he just makes a wry comment, and then he moves on. But also, she's keeping him from catching Silva, who's on the very train. That's one way it can work together. With this, we've got Bond being chased by Dave Bautista, Fingernails Man, as I think you like to call him. We're constantly cutting back to him chatting with Moneypenny casually about Mr. White and so on. There was one specific shot in this action scene that I remember. It cuts back to Moneypenny. She's opening her fridge, getting like milk or something. And the action music that's been playing as he's being chased by the bad guy is still going on. So it's like you've got this contradiction going on, and it's lessening whatever tension you might be feeling in that scene. And also, why does Spectre send one guy to go after him? He invaded this meeting with this super huge organization that has people everywhere, and they send one guy.
Well, I don't mind the one guy thing, and here's my argument. They set the whole good meeting setup also has this tone of being a weird organization based on a strict code of honor among thieves, or at least super reverence for Blofeld. And so the whole thing they're talking about in that scene is who's gonna place this guy and take up his duties, and presumably that involves also killing James Bond, because he's the guy who killed the guy that needs to be replaced. So it seems like it would almost be a thing where it's his job to go kill that guy, and no one else can even help him, or else he's going to get killed himself, right? But I don't think that chase sequence works. And there's even more jokes in it, like he pushes an poor old Italian man around in a car, but it's not funny. It's a perfectly serviceable James Bond joke. Things like that happen all the time in the James Bond movie, but it's so joyless, the whole surrounding circumstances, that you can't really get into it.
Right. I like comparing this chase scene, at least in my mind, to the chase scene in For Your Eyes Only, where Roger Moore is driving a little car to escape all the bad guys that are going after him and the Bond girl. The music that's playing, it's not intense. It's exciting. It's exciting because it's very fast music and so on. It's very lighthearted, and that's one way you could have gone with the scene, or you could have gone the other way and just play it straight, play it really intense. I mean, there's a part where Bond is messing with the gadgets. For some reason, it turns on 009's playlist or something. And it's supposed to be, he likes New York, New York.
Yeah, and then Bond quickly turns it off because he hates that music so much, which I don't really get from Daniel Craig's Bond. I feel like he's never displayed a preference for any kind of culture other than alcohol and card games.
This movie has everything going for it, but for some reason, everything seems to be falling flat. Strangely, it seems like with Madeleine Swan's character, they're trying to do another Vesper Lynn, Tracy Bond sort of thing, where she is the one. For some reason, that falls completely flat. We don't get much chemistry between Bond and Swan in this movie.
And the romance has a weird parallel earlier in the movie to something almost identical that happens with the wife of the guy that Bond killed. And he saves her from the evil Spectre gunman, and then they have sex, and then he says, okay, you're going to off into protective custody, bye-bye. And I guess she dies because those gunmen keep reappearing with Swan, and they find her.
Yeah, it's true.
Whatever MI6 does is not helpful enough.
That's another thing, too. It's like, I saw where everything was going in this movie. Okay, Bond tells Swan, okay, you got to stay in this safe house. I don't want to stay here. All right, I get, okay, maybe you won't stay with Bond ultimately because you don't want to live this kind of life. That's fine. Wait until this whole thing's over, and then you'll be fine. Like clockwork, she gets captured. She gets put in the old MI6 building, and Bond has to save her. Just following these beats, and it's not clicking.
I did not believe that at all. She's like, oh, wait, hold on. I'm out of the story now. Sorry. Goodbye. Well, I'm sure we'll never see her again.
Right. Well, like I was saying, there are some sequences I really like. We talked about the opening shot.
I think another really good aspect of this movie, all of these former spies and anti-spies, life that's so corrupting and dangerous that it just destroys everything about you, and then you're just nothing. Part of the plot is that they discover his old radio transmitting station for Spectre, which is in a hotel room that he uses for the anniversary of his honeymoon. It's a nice little insight into how much an organization like that would just take over your life, or even your most intimate relationships are just thoroughly corrupted.
It does further cement Spectre as this organization that has its hand in everything, and they know where he is. They're able to find him, even though he's in hiding. The problem is that we didn't have a very good payoff in regards to the villains overall. We did have some good moments, and I do want to talk about Blofeld's lair.
Well, before we get on to that, I just want to mention that with Mr. White in the radio room, there's also a little bit where they discover it by James Bond is drunk and talks to a mouse and notices that there's a hole in the wall where there really shouldn't be any. A great little Hardy Boys style spy thing where he pours the beer on the floor and it goes on the wall. And I love that sort of shit. I wish there was more of it.
Him talking to the mouse after he's just kind of given up after searching this room, and it's a great little character moment. He points the gun at the mouse and says, "Who are you working for?" That's some fun stuff there.
All right, so Blofeld's lair, in all the James Bond movies, you got the big, evil, giant, spectacular sets and a million guys running around. And you always frame it as these sort of wide, establishing shots, and they handle it very differently in this movie. And I think it's true to crazy Blofeld base. It's the middle of just bleak desert. There's this giant crater, and inside there's this super technological thing. Guys with machine guns and giant sciencey stuff and a moon rock. Like, it is as wacky as a James Bond base could be, but the presentation is so utterly different. It's introduced slowly. The opening shots are kind of prosaic. It's like you've entered some weird suburban neighborhood, right? There's little things watering the lawn, going back and forth, growing grass. Little man comes out with a little cushion to put your gun on, and there's a different guy standing really far away with a champagne because eventually you're going to walk over there and he can offer you champagne.
Agreed. I think that whole sequence perfectly exemplifies the good elements of the Bond formula. Bond is wine and dined. He's treated like a guest. There's something that's off about this. Having Bond and Swan in two different rooms, and they each have a portrait relevant to their past. Swan has a picture of her dad, and Bond has a picture of the climbing instructor who adopted him. That's some great stuff. And then there's this great build-up, and they go into the room with the meteorite, and you just hear Blofeld's voice. It reminded me a lot of that scene in Dr. No where he invites Professor Dent in and he shows him the thing with the crawly legs, which is revealed to be a tarantula. That was some great stuff. There's this great build-up, and Blofeld starts torturing Bond. It's very, very intense. It's all working very well. And then after that, Bond has to escape with his wits, which fits perfectly. But then we have yet another act to the movie. It felt like it was building up to this great conclusion, but no, there's still more. We have to cut back to this plot of C taking over MI6, and so we have to bring Bond's whole team in. So once again, Bond going after a secret organization was enough. This is kind of the same problem I had with Quantum of Solace, where there was this dumb plot about stealing water or something. Throughout this movie, we see Spectre causing all these terrorist attacks all over the place and manipulating policy and so on. That's all we need. We don't need this specific plot about, oh no, they're going to shut down MI6 again. Yeah, we know Madeleine Swan's going to get kidnapped. Bond has to go through the MI6 building, which is going to explode again. Bond has to face his bad guy. M has to face his bad guy. And this movie's already pretty long. So Skyfall and Spectre and Casino Royale, they're all very long Bond movies. With Skyfall and, for the most part, Casino Royale, I did not feel the film's length. This one, I definitely feel its length.
Okay, so this might be a weird nitpick, but when you go into that MI6 building that's going to explode, right when he walks in, there's a net. He remembers the net because he has to jump from a high floor, and he sets something up, pays off later. Why is there a net?
Yeah, is it like a common thing for construction workers?
Yeah, maybe I'm just ignorant of the art and science that is blowing up a building.
If you're watching this video, please comment below and let us know if construction or destruction workers use a net.
What's going to happen with Blofeld, Kenneth?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they didn't really set him up much. They just kind of invented a reason for the previous movies to count as a setup, but then they caught him at the end. So,
right.
Is he really all that all-pervasive and sinister if you can just set him up and catch him in one movie? He's got to escape, right?
Yeah, of course. I tell you, Matt, I could see what's going to happen in the next movie. Blofeld's going to escape. He's going to shoot Madeleine Swan in the head. It's going to be the exact same thing as on Her Majesty's Secret Service, except at the beginning of the movie. And then Bond's going to go on a revenge ride to go after him. He has to come back and be an agent.
You know what he should have done is got the helicopter working again, picked up Blofeld with the little landing blades, and then dropped him down a shaft.
That would have been perfect.
It's an effective strategy.
Yes. That is how you beat Blofeld. That whole conclusion, too, it's just Bond goes up to him, he's about to shoot him in the head. Yeah, you're going to be solving a lot of problems if you shoot him in the head, but he doesn't. It's like it was resolving a character plot that wasn't really there.
Yeah, I thought that was totally supposed to be like a Batman Joker thing. Oh, I've ultimately decided that I can't kill you, but James Bond is perfectly fine with killing people. He kills people all the time.
Yeah.
He kills people before breakfast.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be like the resolution to that whole subplot of Bond retiring and meeting the woman of his dreams. That plot line wasn't established very well either. We've got Madeleine Swan and Bond, and there isn't a good chemistry between the two characters. They had one good scene where she shows him that she's able to use a gun, and it does pay off when he's fighting Dave Bautista, which itself was a great scene, but I didn't buy into it at all, personally.
Final thoughts. Not an aggravating movie, just kind of not engaging, in spite of being visually similar to other recent James Bond movies that I really enjoy.
Agree. I can't say this is a bad James Bond movie, but I could say it's a very flat James Bond movie. Whatever potential it builds, it quickly undoes that. It has a few great scenes in it, but it never carries that momentum all the way through the movie. It tries to reinforce the old formula in a new way, and those are some of the best parts of the movie, but it doesn't do it quite right where it all gels together. It's tonally inconsistent in terms of the action scenes. Plot-wise, it's inconsistent because it's constantly cutting back and forth between two different plot lines going on. It has some great actors. It has the same cast and crew as Skyfall. I expected more, especially after watching Skyfall. So those are our thoughts on Spectre. My name's Kenneth.
I'm Matthew.
We are the Movie Meisters saying,
cinema is not a slice of life, but a piece of cake.
Thanks for watching.